John T. Scopes, angry about the Butler Law, knew he would go to jail, but he walked into his classroom at Rhea County High School, settled his class, and pulled out his copy of a civic biology. John read the book to his class. Some of the kids looked confused, some disgusted, and some interested. But soon he was in jail, waiting for his case to go to court. In 1925, the Scopes Monkey trial took place. The debate about what should be accepted to teach, religion or science. Without the Scopes Monkey trial, evolution or anything scientifically controversial wouldn't be taught to kids in schools. In 1925, America was very religious. Courts would open with a prayer, and almost all Americans were Christian. It was no surprise when in Dayton, Tennessee, the Butler Law was passed. The law banned any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man as taught in the Bible. The Butler Law not only banned the teaching of evolution, intentionally or not, but also banned academic freedom. The idea of evolution started to spread in 1859, when Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species, where he states, "The view in which most naturalists entertain, in which I formerly entertained, namely, that each species has been independently created, is erroneous." His meaning is that the idea of all species being created individually is incorrect. His theory is that all species evolved from simpler beings. Darwin's theory first developed when he went on a round-the-world trip, landing him in the Galapagos Islands. Here he discovered a group of finches, all the same species but with varying features, depending on what Galapagos Island they were on. The finches had evolved to best thrive in their environment through natural selection. Darwin published his second book in 1871, titled The Descent of Man. In his book, he says man is descended from hairy-tailed quadruped, probably arboreal in its habits, and inhabited the Old World. Darwin had known his theory of evolution for quite some time, but he hadn't shared it with the public in fear of how the public would react. Darwin ended up dying on April 19, 1882. In 1914, George William Hunter published a book called A Civic Biology. The book suggested the idea that all living beings evolved from simpler beings. Hunter's idea is a lot like Darwin's. In 1925, a man named John Butler, upset by the theory of evolution proposed by Darwin, Hunter, and others, wrote a law and passed it to the state of Tennessee. The law prohibited the teaching of evolutionary theory in all universities and public schools in Tennessee. Tennessee approved what was called the Butler Law on a vote of 71 to 5 on March 13, 1925. After the Butler Law passed, a legal group called the American Civil Liberties Union, or the ACLU, put out an article explaining that they needed someone willing to break the Butler Law in the name of academic freedom. John T. Scopes, a part-time science teacher and football coach, stepped up and broke the law by reading Hunter's A Civic Biology to his class. Scopes was arrested and taken to court. The ACLU wanted to make the case known. The ACLU succeeded because there was a lot of local attention brought to the trial. A lot of local people wanted to watch the trial unfold, and there were a lot of people there. Scopes was defended by Clarence Darrow, who is known to be a very good trial attorney, only ever losing one murder case. Scopes' prosecutor was William Jennings Bryan, who was known for his speeches. Bryan was also very religious. On day 2 of the trial, Darrow talked about the ripple effect. He stated, "Today is the public school teachers, tomorrow the private, and the next day the preachers, and the lecturers, and the magazines, and the books, and the newspapers. After a while, Your Honor, we are marching backward to the glorious ages of the 16th. Darrow pointed out that if we keep banning new discoveries, we will never become more knowledgeable. Instead, we will go backwards in our science and knowledge of how the world works." On day 3 of the trial, Darrow objected to the reading of a prayer at the opening of the trial, saying, "I object to the prayer and I object to the jury being present when the court rules the objection." The court answers, "No, I'm responsible for the conduct of the court." Darrow does this because he wants the jury to be unbiased in their ruling. On day 4 of the trial, one of Scopes' students is brought in as a witness. The student's name is Howard Morgan. Darrow asked Morgan about Scopes' class. "Well, did he tell you anything else that was wicked?" Morgan, the student witness, responded with, "No, not that I remember of." Darrow was trying to prove that evolution is harmless. Darrow even adds, "It has not hurt you any, has it?" Morgan responds with, "No, sir." On day 7 of the trial, Darrow addresses a large banner in the courtroom. He describes the banner as a large sign about 10 feet long reading, "Read your Bible," and a hand pointing to the word Bible in large letters, perhaps a foot and a half long. I move that it be removed. This time, Darrow's request was successful, and the banner was removed after a bit of arguing. In Brian's unspoken closing statement, Brian wrote, "It is for the jury to determine whether this attack upon Christian religion shall be permitted in the public schools of Tennessee by the teachers employed by the state and paid out of public treasury." Brian is talking about how the people pay taxes to help the school's funding. This would be a great closing argument because it would relate to the people of the jury, most of them being Christians and not wanting their kids to go against the Bible. Brian also said that science is a magnificent force, but it is not a teacher of morals. Brian was saying that science plays an important role when it develops new inventions, but it doesn't mean that certain scientific topics should be taught in school. He believed that making a part of children's formal education confuses their morals, eventually leading to conflict with the Bible and Christian religion. Brian believed that science and war went hand in hand, stating that science does not teach brotherly love. Brian also says it has made war more terrible than it ever was before. On day 8 of the trial, the jury found Scopes guilty and fined him $100. Today's terms, that would be equivalent to $1,621.23. The Butler Law remained in effect. After being sentenced, Scopes says, "Your Honor, I feel that I have been convicted of violating an unjust statute, and I will continue in the future, as I have in the past, to oppose this law in any way I can. Any other action would be in violation of my ideal academic freedom." After a few other states followed the Butler Law, but eventually made evolution legal again, Scopes' statement brought attention to the obstruction of academic freedom, and years later, in 1967, the Butler Law was repealed. The Scopes monkey trial helped promote science in today's world. The trial advocated for science's role in education and the development of a strong society. Without the Scopes monkey trial, academic freedom would be limited. Schools would only teach what the people wanted to hear and not the facts. But why should we care today? Have you ever been told by a teacher that they can't tell you something because it's illegal? Has a teacher ever told you that they would get fired if they answered your question? Probably not. The Scopes monkey trial was an event that argued if it was right to teach something people disagreed on. Generations to come will want to make their own opinions, and the Scopes monkey trial helped give them the right to.